and came home like nothing happened, until she walked in and found her mother, a cop, and her husband sitting at the table, waiting. Let's begin. The front door clicked shut behind her with the softness of a lie whispered in a hallway. Cassandra Alden didn't look back, not even once. Her designer suitcase rolled effortlessly behind her on gleaming wheels, her heels tapping in perfect rhythm on the front porch as if announcing a victory she hadn't earned. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket, but she ignored it, not because it wasn't important, but because she already knew it was him. Elijah Alden stood in the hallway she just left, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line. His faded, gray flannel hung loosely on his frame, sleeves rolled up halfway like a man who just finished fixing something by hand. It smelled faintly of cedarwood and oil, years of labor that clung to him like memory. But he was no longer the man who built homes. He was the man who watched one fall apart piece by piece. He hadn't said a word when she announced her executive summit in Denver. Didn't question the late-night packing or the unusually sleek blazer draped over her carry-on. But now, as the silence in their home deepened, Elijah stood there with the presence of a man who already knew the answer and didn't like it. He made no move to stop her. That was important. When the sound of her Uber's engine faded into the suburban hum, he walked to the kitchen, quietly, methodically, like a surgeon preparing for an amputation. From the bottom drawer near the spice rack, he pulled out a leather wallet, not the kind that carried money, but the kind that held memory. Inside it was a card, worn at the edges, embossed with a silver logo and a name. Randall York, Private Investigations. His brother Henry had given it to him 12 years ago, right after his own marriage exploded in a burst of neon hotel lights and a Pilates instructor named Vince. "You'll never need it," Henry had said, chuckling through the bitterness. "But if you do, don't wait till your name's a punchline." Well, Elijah wasn't laughing now. He picked up the landline, the one Cassandra never bothered with, and dialed the number etched into his mind from the day he found the card. The voice that answered was clean, cool, efficient. "York Investigations. This is Randall. This is Elijah Alden," he said. "My wife just left for a work trip. I need to know who she's really with. And I need confirmation before Saturday night." There was a brief pause. Then Randall replied, standard tailing. "We'll need her photo, details, and itinerary. Email works best. I've already got it scanned," Elijah said, sliding into his office chair. "She left the printout on my desk, like a breadcrumb trail." There was no hesitation in his voice, no emotion. That part of him had been carefully anesthetized. When the call ended, he didn't smash anything, didn't scream into the quiet. He simply went back to the hallway, pulled down the blinds, and stared at the street. The neighborhood was still. Hydrangeas swayed in manicured gardens. Kids biked without helmets. Normalcy was a trap, but Elijah had learned something in his years as a contractor. Just because a beam looks straight doesn't mean the house won't collapse. And Cassandra, she had just walked out with the confidence of someone too used to people forgiving her before the apology. Back inside, Elijah sat at the kitchen table, the same one they'd picked out at a flea market 15 years ago. He reached into the drawer beside the stove and found a folded napkin. On it, scribbled in cursive, was a hotel confirmation number. But not for Denver. Not for anything she had mentioned. No, it was for a coastal resort in Florida. A place known for sunsets and champagne packages. He stared at it a moment longer, then opened his laptop. He wrote a short message to Randall. "She just left. I've attached the photo and confirmation slip. Track everything. If she's innocent, I'll pay double." When it was sent, he closed the laptop and didn't move for 5 minutes. Outside, a storm hadn't started yet, but Elijah could smell the lightning. By Thursday afternoon, the email came. The subject line was deliberately boring. Delivery confirmation. Case hashtag 2713. Elijah saw it light up the corner of his screen while he was repairing the hinge on the back gate. His hands were covered in dust, but he didn't wipe them before opening the message. He didn't need ceremony for this. Inside was a neatly summarized timeline, 24 attached photos, and a PDF labeled Expense Ledger. Randall York's team didn't waste words. They didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. Cassandra had never gone to Denver. She'd flown to Clearwater Beach, Florida, checked in under the name Cassandra Alden, companion listed as David Kessler. Her division head, her direct superior, and the same man who had once slapped Elijah on the back at a company barbecue and said, "She's got the sharpest instincts in the room." In one photo, Cassandra lounged on a hotel balcony, barefoot, swirling a glass of white wine. David stood beside her, his hand grazing the small of her back like it belonged there. In another, she leaned into him, lips barely brushing the edge of his jaw as they laughed over oysters and a room service card that charged $163 for anniversary evening package. Romance special. Elijah zoomed in. She was still wearing her wedding band, but it no longer meant anything. He closed the laptop with the care of a man disarming a bomb and walked to the laundry room. There, behind the rows of detergent and fabric softener, was a locked filing box. Inside it, their marriage license, property deeds, and a prenup Cassandra hadn't touched in 2 decades. She'd mocked it once, called it a just-in-case parachute for people who expected a crash. Elijah had insisted, and she'd signed it. Clause 7b. Infidelity on the part of Cassandra Alden shall forfeit all claims to co-own property acquired post-marriage. This includes the residence, all vehicles, and designated assets registered in Elijah Alden's name. He pulled it out, reread it once, and set it neatly on the dining table. Then he called someone he hadn't spoken to in years. "Lillian," he said, "it's Elijah. I need a favor." There was a long pause. Then the voice on the other end sighed. "Cassandra." He didn't reply. "She did something, didn't she?" Still, Elijah said nothing. "I'll be there Saturday night," Lillian said softly. "And I'll bring my badge. Just say the word." That night, Elijah didn't sleep. He lay in the bed she used to warm, eyes wide, staring at the shadows on the ceiling. He imagined the sound of her laugh echoing across hotel walls. Imagine David Kessler, 6-figure smile, salt and pepper temples, telling her she deserved better. Maybe she believed it. Maybe she just liked the fantasy of being pursued. But what she'd forgotten was that real men don't chase illusions. They wait. And when the mask finally slips, they're still standing. Sunday evening arrived with deceptive calm. The kind of golden sunset that made the neighborhood glow like a painting. Children rode scooters down driveways. Wind chimes whispered to porches, and sprinklers ticked like lazy metronomes. But inside the Alden home, the air was tight. The dining table had been cleared of everything but a manila folder, a folded white envelope, and a printed copy of the prenup. Elijah sat at the head of the table, composed, silent. His posture wasn't confrontational. It was formal, like a judge waiting for the courtroom doors to open. To his left sat Lillian Kane, Elijah's childhood friend, and now a veteran officer with the city's precinct. Not in uniform, but her badge clipped discreetly to her belt. She wasn't here for arrests. She was here to be the one thing Cassandra couldn't sweet-talk or seduce, a witness. Across from her sat Vivian Clark, Cassandra's mother. Dignified, restrained, her expression unreadable. She wore a simple navy blouse and clutched a teacup like it was holding her upright. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were locked on the door. The garage door rattled open at exactly 6:41 p.m. Moments later, Cassandra's heels echoed against the hardwood as she entered, scarf still stylishly tied, sunglasses perched on her head like a queen returning from war. She paused when she saw them, eyes flicking from Elijah to Lillian to her mother. She didn't smile. "Elijah," she said slowly, "what is this?" He didn't answer, just gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit." She hesitated. "Is someone dead?" Lillian raised an eyebrow. "Not unless you count the truth." Cassandra's gaze sharpened at that, but she moved toward the chair and sat, every motion deliberate. She adjusted her sleeve, uncrossed, and recrossed her legs. "What's going on?" she asked. "Why is my mother here?" Vivian finally spoke. Her voice was soft, but there was steel in it. "I came to see what you've been doing behind your husband's back." Cassandra blinked. Her mask faltered for just a second. Elijah pushed the folder toward her. "Open it." She didn't move. "I don't play games, Elijah," she said coolly. "No," he replied. "You play roles." Lillian said nothing, but the air around her felt heavier. Cassandra reached forward and flipped open the folder. The photos were on top. She stared at the first one, her on the hotel balcony, wine glass raised, David Kessler behind her. Then another, his hand on her waist. Then the spa confirmation. Dinner for 2. In-room champagne. Her jaw tightened. This is an invasion of privacy, she said, voice rising. You had someone follow me? Vivian snapped. You lied to your husband and your family. You don't get to cry foul now. Cassandra stood suddenly, slamming the folder shut. You ambushed me. Lillian's voice was even. Sit down, Cassandra. The authority, and it wasn't loud, but it pinned her to the spot. Cassandra sat again, teeth clenched. You think I'm a villain here? She hissed. Because I went on a trip and had a few drinks with my boss. Elijah opened the PDF next. Scrolled to the email. He read it aloud, each word slicing through the room. Last few days were incredible. Can't stop thinking about Wednesday night. Next time, no work panels. Just you and me. Cassandra swallowed hard. Her voice shrank. That doesn't mean... It means you crossed the line, Elijah cut in, and you did it while wearing my name and pretending nothing was broken. Vivian's hand shook as she spoke, barely above a whisper. You stood in my kitchen, smiled, and lied to my face. There was silence, and then Elijah placed the final envelope on the table. This is your official notice to vacate, he said. Effective tonight. Her eyes widened. You're kidding. Elijah didn't blink. No. Cassandra's hands hovered above the envelope like it was radioactive. She blinked hard, forcing her expression into something halfway between disbelief and indignant amusement. You're seriously evicting me? She scoffed. You can't be serious. Vivian looked away, disgusted. Lillian sat still, a statue in judgment. But Elijah leaned forward, voice calm as a steady flame. I'm not evicting you out of spite, Cassandra. I'm enforcing what you already signed. He slid the prenup toward her like a closing statement in a trial. Clause 7b. Infidelity. You forfeited any claim to the house the moment you leaned into him instead of coming home. She finally tore open the envelope. As her eyes scanned the paper, her shoulders slowly dropped. Her face drained. It wasn't just a letter. It was notarized, legally binding, filed and backed by their co-signed agreement. One she'd ignored for decades. You used to fix sinks and build decks, she said in a small voice, almost trembling. Now you're drawing up legal traps? Elijah tilted his head. I used to fix everything, Cassandra, until I realized you were the leak. Her eyes widened. Her pride cracked. She turned to her mother, desperate. Mom, seriously? You're just letting him throw me out like I'm a guest. Vivian's voice was cold. You were always welcome here, Cassandra. Until you became someone I no longer recognized. Cassandra stood. This is emotional blackmail. No, Elijah said softly. This is consequences. She tried again. I was lonely. You don't even talk to me anymore. You sit in silence and build birdhouses and pretend that's love. Elijah met her eyes. And while I did that, you packed lingerie I didn't recognize and drank champagne I didn't buy. That silenced her. The room was still. Then Lillian stood and spoke for the first time in 10 minutes. You should know, she said quietly. HR at your company has already been contacted. Anonymous, of course. But they're investigating. Cassandra spun toward her. You call my office? No, Elijah said. Your company has a strict code of conduct. The evidence speaks for itself. They called you. The folder still lay open. The spa packages. The room service. The messages. All linked to David Kessler. David will fix this, she said, almost to herself. Vivian finally laughed, a bitter, broken sound. David's protecting himself, and you're the variable. Cassandra's phone buzzed. She checked it. No missed calls. No texts. Only a new email from the office. Subject: administrative suspension, pending internal review. Her hands trembled. Elijah, she said. Her voice was different now. Not arrogant. Not performative. Just hollow. I didn't mean for it to go this far. You didn't mean for it to be discovered, he corrected. There's a difference. The next morning dawned early. Cassandra didn't sleep. She sat upright on her childhood bed, where the posters of boy bands still peeled at the corners, and the air smelled faintly of rose potpourri and old regrets. She had spent the night tossing between disbelief and despair. Her phone remained cold in her hand. No missed calls. No message from David. Not even a cryptic emoji. He was silent. Everyone was silent now. At 9:15 a.m., she stepped into her corporate parking garage like a ghost from another life. Her scarf clutched tightly at her neck, her sunglasses too large, trying to shield her from the truth she could no longer outrun. Her employee badge didn't work. She tried again. Nothing. Through the glass doors, the front desk clerk, Kyle, noticed her. He approached slowly, awkwardly. "Mrs. Alden," he said, almost apologetically. "There's been a change." "What do you mean a change?" she demanded, voice cracking. "You're on administrative leave," he said. "Effective this morning. HR sent an all-staff memo. Your badge has been disabled." "I'm sorry." She stared at him, dumbfounded. Her hands clenched the handle of her tote. "Where's David?" Kyle didn't answer. He only handed her a manila envelope. Inside it, a formal letter citing breach of ethical conduct, unprofessional relationships, and a pending HR inquiry. Cassandra's name was printed in bold. So was David Kessler's. Her breath caught. Her eyes burned. She turned and walked back to her car. Across town, Elijah stood in line at the bank. The envelope in his hand was thinner now, just a few documents tucked inside. He passed them to the teller without a word. His expression was clean, focused. The papers included a copy of the updated deed, now with no joint claim, the revised will, removing Cassandra as medical proxy, the authorization letter to close their shared accounts. Everything now rested under one name, Elijah Alden. By noon, his home no longer bore a single trace of Cassandra's presence. Her belongings had been boxed, labeled, and sent to storage. Paid through January. Mover scheduled for Tuesday. And she would not be returning. Not even a watch. He stood in the center of the now quiet living room, where dust motes danced in sunlight, and the ceiling fan hummed like a heartbeat slowly calming. He didn't cry. He didn't smile. He just stood, as if anchoring himself to this new version of life, one that no longer required apologies for loving the wrong person too long. That evening, Cassandra's phone finally rang. It wasn't David. It was her lawyer. "I've reviewed your prenup," he said. "There's not much to contest." She swallowed. "Does he get everything?" There was a pause. "He already has." She sat down slowly on the floor of her childhood bedroom, where the wallpaper curled and the memories echoed in silence. She had played the role of the ambitious wife, the irreplaceable strategist, the woman with options. But in the end, all her roles were stripped away by a man who never raised his voice, never broke a plate, and never begged. Elijah had done something far more devastating. He made her watch herself fall, with witnesses,